ahora sí vamos a dar comienzo a las charlas de la tarde y para esto nos acompañan hoy Mark Harrell, cofundador de Givebacks, que nos acompaña desde Carolina del Norte y es un cliente que comenzó su empresa en la misma época que Abstracta estaban haciendo. Y Alexa Altez, que es Tech Lead en Abstracta, y nos van a contar cómo pasaron de no tener nada de test informalizado a tener un equipo dedicado, orientado hacia la calidad y que eso atraviesa toda la empresa. So now I'm going to speak in English and let's kick off the afternoon sessions. And so please welcome Matt Harrell, co-founder of Givebacks. He is a client that came all the way from North Carolina, and he's a client who started his company at the same time Abstracta was being born. And Alexa Altez, that is the tech lead at Abstracta, and they will be sharing with us how they went from having no formal testing practice to building a dedicated team with a quality-focused approach that now runs across the entire organization. So let's hear how they made it happen.
All right, thank you so much, Gabriella. Is this on? Yeah, there we go. Great. So now that we have the session just after lunch, hopefully no one will fall asleep while we're doing this. We have to keep it exciting up here, Alexa. First of all, I just want to thank Abstracta and Fede in particular for inviting me to come down here. Uruguay has been amazing. The people, the culture, just everything over the past few days has been really great. So I really thank you for that. As you mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders of Givebacks, and of the many hats that I do wear, I'm trying to lead our organization on this quality journey that we're on. But Givebacks is a software company in the K-12 space in the U.S., so we're pretty much a payments platform, a payments company that serves like school districts and student support organizations. So yeah, I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad that Alexa is on stage with me. She keeps me straight in our quality assurance journey, so I'm glad that she's joining me as well. And we're going to share the stage up here a little bit. So, question for the audience, and I'm wondering how many people are business leaders versus QA, professionals already, but has anybody ever worked in a software team without any testers or any formal QA at all? Yeah. Thank you, Wesley. Yeah. A word or two to describe what that was like? Chaos. Yeah. Chaos, that's right. Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit about that today and the chaos that we're working through at Givebacks. So a little bit about our evolution. So all the way back in 2018, Givebacks was pretty much a membership management platform. We had one product. It was an all-in-one product. And we were serving about 1,000 PTAs. And the PTA is a parent-teacher association. So we were small. We had just kind of found our niche. We had just found this channel. We were moving about $3 million in payment volume. So that's not revenue, but like people were using our platform, and $3 million was going through there. We had 2 developers, 1 support rep. My wife had just said, I can't do this anymore, so she's not helping anymore, that sort of thing. So we were still relatively small, just finding our feet. Now, fast forward to 2023, just 5 years later, we were now an all-in-one parent engagement and fundraising platform. So we had about 11,000 different school PTAs using our software. We now had 3 products. We were moving $80 or so million in payment volume through the platform. So tremendous amount of growth. About that time, we had maybe 5 developers, a couple of product managers or product owners. We had 3 support reps, that sort of thing. And then on to today. Now we are moving into the school district zone. We have 61 school districts, 42 state PTAs. We have about 14,000 or so organizations that have a Stripe account connected to us. And we're moving over $100 million in payments through our platform. Now we have 7, maybe 8, 9, I don't know. I was talking to someone the other day. I said, who's he? Is he a new developer? Okay, yeah, so maybe we have 8 developers, 9 developers now. We have 3 product teams, 3 product owners, and support reps. But you'll notice in this story here that I'm talking about, some of the roles But you probably are noticing that, how many QA testers did we have during that growth, especially from 2018 to 2023? Yes, you guessed it, 0 testers. We had 0 testers. We had no formal QA process. Looking back on it, I really don't know how we did that. We did some testing. We had product owners that would test their things and then would come out, and we would do some, smoke testing and acceptance testing. But just thinking back to that period with the growth that we were experiencing and having no formal QA, it is now on the other side of that shocking to me that we didn't have that. But we didn't. We really didn't have any formal QA at all. And so we were that, we felt like we were small, still small, startup, and we were scrappy, and so we were had subscribed to this, move fast and break things, right? And so that's what we did. We were moving fast, and we were breaking a lot of things. And the breaking point came in 2024 for us, where our business is very cyclical. So the back-to-school season is when all of our activities start. So in July, as parents are getting their children ready for coming back to school and the year-round schools start, our revenue, the support, everything really ramps up in July. And that back-to-school season, we had changed around some of the features, some of the major modules. And so these PTAs in particular, these organizations were coming back, and they had certain parts of the platform they had to use. And they had to use memberships. They had to enter their memberships into our software to report them to the state PTA. And we had broken that. So we had critical bugs that were impacting customers when they needed us most. Our partnerships were at risk because we sort of, that channel was state PTA. So we partnered with New York State PTA, and then they roll our software out to all the local schools in the state. And some of those partnerships were, they were concerned. They couldn't get the information that they needed to run their organization. And our support ticket volume was shooting up as well. So I had 20% in here. It could have been more than that. But we had a lot of unpleasant conversations with customers. And I'm sure many of you in this room have experienced that too, right? When these things happen, customer support is the one that has to take it on the chin and talk to these upset customers. So we had frustrated customers. We had burned out customer support agents, tired product teams, the product owners running around trying to figure out, we have to fix this now, we have to fix that there. We had a disappointed executive team. Everyone was disappointed in some of these things that were happening. And we were fine, we were growing and everything was okay, but it was just one of these things where Givebacks is great, they have this great platform, we need to use it. They have some bugs, but they fixed them. And, I just remember thinking so many times, is that what we want to be known for? So, but we did. We experienced some brand degradation during that time. And so we realized, we really needed to change something. And so initially we said, all right, well, we need QA. That's what we need. But we know we needed professional QA in a sense. But at the time when we said, okay, we need to do something about this, there were sort of 2 options that presented themselves to us at the time. One of them was a no-code AI automation tool. And it was from a local entrepreneur in our area. Our CEO had met him, I had met him. And so we had correspondence with him. And the value proposition was really strong, right? Ship faster, ship better. Well, who doesn't want to do that? The founder was local, as I said. There was some kind of loose promises around, well, we could automate 600 tests for you in about 3 months, and all we need is 15 minutes from one person on your team a week. And you can imagine how that value proposition landed with especially our CEO, who was like, this is what we want to do. We want to automate everything, right? Yeah, they're just going to automate it. We'll check that box, and we'll have all of our testing done. Okay, great. And then on the other hand, we were then introduced to Abstracta, and they were recommended to us by another company. And their value proposition was a little bit different, right? We are your allies in quality, and I liked that. And it was very clear from the get-go, these are experienced QA professionals. They're here to advise with us. And they recommended we started with a maturity assessment, and that was very logical. So we said, okay, we need to do both of these things here. Let's try this fangled AI automation tool, and then let's continue these conversations with Abstracta. And so with the AI automation tool, we said, okay, well, let's do a proof of concept. So we got with them, and they said, okay, we're going to do a 15-day proof of concept. And they said, select which area, we'll turn this thing loose, we're going to write some tests, what module, what functionality you want to do. So memberships module, we can't break that again. So they said, okay, give us 2 weeks, we're going to use their software, we're going to create about 100 tests with this AI tool, and for your memberships module, and then we're all going to get back together, we're going to review the test, we're going to look at what it did, and go from there. So that's what we did. 2 weeks passed, and we got back together. And I guess the way that I would describe it is just uncertain. Like, we were unclear. Like, I mean, certainly there were some things that were obvious. Like, the test cases were shallow, meaning they weren't going very deep through a user experience flow. And then some of the coverage was repeated. They had this test, and it was like, well, those are kind of testing the same things. And then, of course, they just missed some critical user flows altogether, right? This bot could go and click and go through, but maybe it wasn't human. It didn't know that sometimes they go this way or whatever. There's little transparency in the code, and engineering was just kind of confused. They're like, I don't know, can you see the code? Like, what did it do? And so we sort of left that thinking like, this isn't great. It was just cloudy, at best. And, I think there are plenty of tools and there are plenty of platforms where this type of tool might work well. I mean, a simple app where there's only 3 or 4 user flows, I'm sure that could be great, but our platform is complicated, as Alexa can attest to, and there's several different modules, and we left that just going, no, this isn't going to work. We can't do this. So then Abstracta was doing the maturity assessment as well, and this was fantastic. I mean, they came in, and at the end of this, essentially what we realized is that, we didn't need testing. We needed to build a culture of quality. And so they came in, and they were taking deep observations. And it wasn't just, hey, Matt, let's meet. We'll pitch you what we do here. It was like, the other Federico, I mean, he was like, they met in the sprint meetings. They got stuck in on those. They met with our engineers. They met with product owners. And, they were immediately sort of embedding themselves into the organizations and just observing. And then, of course, they started to explain basic stuff. And I used to be a former developer. I was for 7 years and had a computer science degree. But it had been so long since I had really understood the basics of QA. But they started to explain these things to us, right? Like shift left and these types of things. And we quickly sort of realized that we didn't have a foundation. Like, how could we go straight to automation? How did we think we could do that? And we had no foundation, and we learned a lot, initially from this maturity assessment. And the biggest thing, kind of takeaway, was that it started this dialogue, I think, for us, which is that we didn't have a QA problem. We really had a deliverability problem. We were missing dates, we were missing our release dates, but we were also shipping bugs. And early on, I started to realize this isn't just like, oh, we just need to snap on QA and we need to test better and everything will be fine. So the maturity assessment was great. Honestly, it was very helpful, and that really kicked off the conversation. So yep. I'm going to turn it over to Lex, and she's going to tell you what it was like coming into our chaotic organization.
Can you hear me already? Yeah, I think so. So Matt was mentioning that this basically relationship was new. So the first thing that we needed to do was to understand the situation, actually. For that, in Abstracta, we have the assessment that Matt already mentioned. I won't go deep into the assessment itself, but just to mention that basically what it does is to measure the maturity level on different areas such as functional testing, automation, infrastructure, and so on. So having that, we will be able to create a plan, understand where we were actually starting from, and what we had to work. So, can you move to the next one?
Yeah.
From the results of that, I don't know if you can see, I think so,
a little
kind of. From the results of that, other than the information that we gather, we created what we call back in the days the 90 days plan. Basically, just to summarize it, it was a plan that outlined like every single thing that we were going to be doing for the next 90 days to start building this foundation, so then we can start like having really a QA area working with QA in place and so on. So the thing is, we gather information. It was empiric information that we gathered. We had a plan. We had pretty much everything ready. Like, what would be the problem with that? Can you? What about the people? The thing is, when we gathered all of this information, we understood the size of the team, the tools that were being used, the good practices, if there was any. Basically, what the books tell you, that this is like the ideal world. So we started to work with that. But what happens with the people itself? When we started executing this plan, everything was smooth, at least at the beginning. You know, this plan contained things such as, okay, let's define the test case management that we are going to use. Let's start writing the test cases in the most critical areas. Let's define how to actually write them. Simple things. Why will be a problem in here? So basically, what occurred is that all we plan is related to the entire team. This is going to involve everyone. So, Next one. We started to face the challenge of working in silos. I'm going to mention a pretty small story. Like one of the first things that we decided to do was to, okay, we need a process to report bugs. Something so simple as that. The thing is, previously the bugs were reported in a comment inside the main story. And you may be thinking, oh, why this will be a problem? The thing is that people work for months or even years following this process, and suddenly some outsiders appear to say, oh, you need to change this. So what I want to say with all of this is we focus so much on the tools, the good practices, what the book says, but we forgot about the people. Instead of trying to understand and collaborate with the people, we came in to change things.
Yeah.
Matt, all yours. Try to speed up a little bit.
Yeah, and as Alexa was mentioning, I mean, the people aspect was challenging, but it was trying to start a culture of quality, and Alexa was helping and really driving a lot of that and driving all these conversations, bringing up these issues, and I was trying to empower her and empower others to kind of participate in this. But I think even just this idea that, you know, QA is not solely responsible for bugs was like a mindset shift for people, that like, oh, we shipped bugs, well, did we QA it, you know? And we're still even working through this sort of like blame culture, right? As she talked about these silos, oh, well, the requirements weren't complete. Oh, well, the acceptance criteria weren't complete. Or why didn't you test that edge case? And, you know, finger pointing and blame culture. And so, you know, this whole idea that like, especially even in our pods, we have 3 product teams. And so how do we get, even in one product team, the engineer and the functional tester and the product owner to actually be on the same page? Because, as Alexa mentioned, the silos, even though we had pods, each with one of those team members, the silos was, you know, engineering and product and QA, and they were not crossing and they were not mixing very well. So that was a really big shift for us, and we're really breaking down the walls now, and we're making really great progress. In particular, I would say over the last few months on that. But just to share with you guys some of the results, like, okay, well, what actually happened? What did you guys do with all this? Abstracta has been with us a little over a year. We now have over 2,000 test cases have been written. We've got some level of automation on about 90%. And they have found literally over 500 defects caught before the release went out. So it's just, I can't imagine where we would be without, doing this. And you'll notice at the end of this slide, there's a but, right? Because we have all of these things. We've done all of these things, but we're still having great growth. We're redesigning some of our products. We're redesigning some of our modules. We're shipping new products. And even this year, we decided we were going to have to rewrite one of our foundational models around contact management and things. And anyway, all that to say that I'd love to sit here, and I know Alexa and anyone else affiliated with us would love to say, hey, here's the deal. We had bugs, and then we hired Abstracta, or we partnered with them together. We did these QA function, and we don't have any more bugs. And this is how we did it. If you have questions, let us know. But the reality is that even this back-to-school season, we had several bugs. We had several bugs that still made it to production. And so we're still on that journey. And so from that, I personally went in and said, okay, I'm going to do a deep root cause analysis on this. How did this happen again? And of course, even our CEO is like, wait a minute, so this isn't an inexpensive thing, and we're still having bugs in production, like why? So doing this root cause analysis was very eye-opening. And what did we learn? We learned that it's not just a QA thing. Again, it's really not just QA. It's so much of things that, are on the product side or on the engineering side, and working together more is what we're trying to do still. And so one of the last things that I wanted to share with you guys that we did that we're finding very helpful right now is change management. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that term, it's sort of a geeky business term or something. But anyway, it's a structured approach to transitioning from a current state to a future state. Basically, we have a bunch of change. Like you mentioned earlier, Abstracta is coming in. We need to change this. We need to change this. And then I had my proof of concept. And there were like 4 overarching themes that came out of that. And here we are sitting with all these things that we want to change. And it's just like, where do we start? How do we do that? So, Eli and I, some of you guys know Eli. He lives here in Uruguay and works with us. But we created this change management function because change management is about people, right? It's really about shepherding people through all of these changes. And so now all of these things that we're learning that we are trying to change to be quality focused, to be customer centric, are now going through this change management. And we're talking with everyone, everyone that's involved. Okay, what is changing? Why does this matter? Who is impacted? Who's impacted? And what's the adoption going to be like? Is it going to be smooth? Is it going to be measurable? And this is very new. This is we actually just had our first meeting last week to review everything that's in this change management backlog. But it was one of the first meetings I've had where everyone from engineering and product and delivery were there, and it was like we had productive conversations about some really hard stuff, like why don't we include QA in our estimations, which is a very lively debate we had in a recent meeting, but tough conversations. So this change management function in our organization now, it was huge to kind of come along and supplement what we're doing, from a quality standpoint to drive some of this change forward.
Yep. So really quickly, some of the lessons that we have learned this time. The first one is that what I already mentioned a couple times, theory, good practices, tool, processes, all are good, but are not enough if you don't consider the people that is going to get involved into all of these things. The second one is something that I think mostly apply for QAs, because it's where I have seen this mostly. We need to have patience. Sometimes we, in QA, want to have like everything so perfect, and if we want to implement A, B, C, and we just implemented A, we are not comfortable with that because we want like everything perfect. Change requires patience, and if you accomplish A, you took steps, so that's okay. And the third one is that the collaboration is key, but I'm not talking only about the areas of product development, QA. What I'm talking about here is everyone who's involved in the product itself. And the perfect example is Matt, who's not product, who's not developer, not a QA, but
what do I do there? I don't know.
Yeah, he has been key in all of this, not only because he's present, but also because he's like expressing his concerns, his needs. When something is good, he's also expressing this, and that helps to drive the changes. Because yeah, we can do a lot of stuff, but those stuff not necessarily align with what the company requires. Mm-hmm. The other example is Bobby, which is another co-founder, which in a recent meeting expressed a couple different points that were his concern. So that's key. If you don't have that information, you can do stuff, but are you doing the right stuff? So that's what I wanted to share in that.
Yeah.
Matt, what's yours?
And my parting advice is, again, if you're a business leader and not a QA professional, and like I said earlier, maybe many of you are QA professionals here, but just educate yourself on the latest quality trends, because you want to be able to talk the talk when you're trying to, again, this whole talk is, if you're trying to establish a quality, professional quality in an existing organization, educate yourself on these latest trends, because as you all know, many, many things are happening right now. And then prepare for the difficult conversations. As you guys can sense, like, this talk has been mostly about people, and those difficult conversations, and there's different opinions, and you need to prepare for that. So what I mean is, anticipate what your engineering lead is going to come back with. Anticipate what your product owners are going to have a problem with when you say, we need to change around exactly how we report bugs in the system for that, or whatever it is. Like, be prepared for that. Anticipate the questions. Anticipate what their objections are going to be, and be ready to overcome them. And then, of course, involve all your stakeholders on every team. You can't do this in a silo as well. And then align early on metrics for ROI. I mean, even like what Alexa was just talking about with Bobby, one of our co-founders, is, we were doing, we like, we need to measure this, and I don't even know some of these QA metrics, but like, how many bugs, what's our throughput, and what's our, all these great, and Eli built this amazing dashboards, and even for me, it was like, and then especially for Bobby too, and Bobby was just like, hey, look, I want to stop shipping regression bugs, and he had 3 things. It was like, oh, well, that's simple. And so I kicked myself thinking, I could have done a better job aligning everyone on, like, these are the 3 things that matter. It's really that simple. This is how we're measuring it. And then it becomes really easy when you're trying to advocate for, significant cost increase in your organization to adopt these things, and you say, where's the ROI? Well, here's the numbers. It's, be prepared for that, and keep it simple too. And then lastly, just consider that change management function. Like I said, it sounds kind of weird and scary and businessy, but it's stupid simple. It's just like, there's changes, and we need to manage those changes, and someone needs to be responsible for shepherding people through all these changes that we're doing. And we just have like a Monday board. I think we're actually going to move it into linear, but it's just a backlog of things, and we rank them. We have a little ranking system. Hey, this is going to be the most impactful. Let's talk about this one first. So yeah,
I think
that's it.
Thank you so much, Alexa and Matt, for sharing with us. Anyone has a question to ask them?
Hopefully. Yes. No, why? Hopefully it's for Matt.
I think it's for you.
Hi, thanks for sharing your experience, guys. I just wanted to ask, you mentioned that change management and getting people involved was one of the challenges you faced. What are some of the things that led you to get to a better place in terms of that, to get buy-in in the teams, to get things rolling as things progressed? Because I guess you realized along the way that that was a blocker. People were working in silos. What were some of the things that you did to get to the place that you're at today? What worked?
Yeah. So I think is your question more like, we're identifying that there were silos there, and how do we start to break those things down? Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. It's still taking place, to be honest with you. But gosh, I mean, it took some time, as Alexa mentioned, and even just like inviting our VP of engineering into the channel where we are spitting out all the automation that we're running the test results. And we just realized, I mean, months into this thing, it's like he doesn't even have any visibility into all these tests we're running. It's like, oh, well, we weren't even asking for a meeting. We're just saying, hey, check this out. This thing runs every day. You know, you should go see that. So I think little things like that make a difference. And then I think you know, Alexa and Fed has been working with us too. And I think they've been encouraging the functional testers that are in each one of our pods to find their voice and speak up. You know, and especially in sprint review meetings or grooming sessions and things like that, and they are. And I was so happy to see Audrey a couple weeks ago, and she put a note in one of the pod channels. I was like, thank you so much, everyone, for listening to my thoughts. And, you know, the product owner was like, this is great. We're absolutely going to do this. Thanks for your feedback, you know. And I was just like, yes. Yeah, you know, so it's been little things like that. Yeah.
Anyone? Another question? So,
You can ask it in Spanish, because then Alexa
Yes.
can
No, you
take
cannot.
it.
I don't know how to speak Spanish. All right.
no?
Looks like we're done.
Yep. Nope. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much.